Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of Imperial Diecast. And today we're going to be taking a look at a very special car. I wouldn't even call this a supercar, but a hypercar, because this is the Pagani Huayra. This right here is a 1/24 scale Pagani Huayra by Motormax. And Huayra is a South American god of wind. I mean, this started out back in 2011 as a $1 million car, and it's only gotten more expensive ever since. You know, to me, every car that starts with a retail price of over $1 million is a hypercar. And the Huayra also has the stats to defend that label. Pagani made, I think, only 100 Huayra coupes, and by February 2015, they were sold out. But then there are like a whole bunch of special editions that Pagani has manufactured over the past 10 years, including 100 Roadsters, the Huayra BC, and various other bespoke one-of-one models. So this 1/24 scale model is made by Motormax, and it's a dark red burgundy metallic that sparkles brilliantly in the sunlight. But Motormax also released this car in a brighter shade of red. In blue, in matte black, and a Huayra Roadster in a couple of different colors as well. Welly also released a Huayra coupe. And in my past 1/24 reviews, like in the Maisto Huracan or Motormax McLaren P1 review, oftentimes I say, you know, if there's a Welly version of this, then just go buy the Welly because it'll always have more details than a 1/24 Maisto or Motormax. But in this case, the only difference I noticed is that the Welly Huayra comes with matte silver wheels instead of chrome ones, and that it has brake discs and calipers, although they are quite hard to see behind these rims. And of course, the Welly Huayra also features front steering. But other than that, it's very similar to the Motormax. So here's a top view of this car, and I think it looks quite spectacular. The Pagani Huayra is different from its predecessor in that, unlike the Zonda, it incorporates active aerodynamics in the form of these 4 flaps, 2 in the front, 2 in the back, that can raise or lower to not just provide the downforce needed to keep this relatively light vehicle pinned to the ground at high speeds, but because they can raise or lower independently from one another, they also help the car corner at high speeds. So taking a closer look at the front of the Pagani Huayra, I mean, you can see that we have these 4 headlights, and I personally think that they're the weakest aspect about the Pagani Huayra because their slim and oval form just doesn't make them look particularly pretty or anything. But, Motormax still has provided details here, but there is not a whole lot of detail to provide because they're small headlights. And in fact, there's 8 of them in total, because it's 2 bulbs per headlight, and then you have like 2 headlights on either side. Of course, the surround of the headlights is in gloss black, but on the real Huayra they would be carbon fiber. And here's a closer look at the 2 front flaps, which of course do not open on this small 1/24 scale model, but the outlines are still there, so you know that they're meant to move. Up here you can see that we have a little oval silver bit, and you'd have the Pagani logo here on the real car, and unfortunately Motormax has not provided us with that extra detail. Moving further down, you can see that this entire front of this car is basically one big front grille, and on either side we have a small silver strip that is supposed to represent the LED strip on the real Pagani Huayra. And here we are at the side of the Pagani Huayra, and this, in my opinion, is the best view of this supercar because the side profile is so unique. I mean, the front is shaped like an arrow, and it's just absolutely amazing looking. We'll start with this signature right here. This is the signature of Horacio Pagani, as you can see. It's a little bit bigger on the model than it's supposed to be in real life, of course, but at the same time that also means that it's legible and you can read the individual lettering. We've got an air vent here, and I painted the center part of the air vent in black to simulate depth. And on the silver part here, on the real car, it says Pagani, but on this 1/24 Motormax model, they unfortunately did not write it. So these rims, I believe, are 19-inch at the front and 20-inch at the rear. And you can see that the rear wheels have more depth than the front ones, so I'm glad that Motormax also included that detail on this 1/24 scale car. I really like the contrast between the burgundy red color of the car and this black part down here. And the chrome rims also really give this car that extra bit of shine that it needs. So as we take a closer look at the rims, you can see that this being a 1/24 scale model, there are no brake discs or calipers. But I don't think that the lack of these takes away from the overall look of the model. The chrome wheels look absolutely fantastic, and you can also see that this center part between the spokes is also perforated. You can see that we have some air vents up here, with a little bit of texture to indicate the grille. And now let's take a closer look at these mirrors, because this is what's very unique about the Pagani Huayra. And you can see that we have like a carbon fiber texture on them. And the mirrors are actually shaped like a leaf or like a woman's eye. And I think that they look really cool on this model. Motormax made these mirrors flexible, which means that they're made out of rubber and they don't break easily. So, in fact, they don't break at all. And here we are at the back of the Pagani Huayra. And just like the front, the back of this car is also very unique. There's literally nothing else out there that looks like the back of this Huayra. And I think what's most famous about the back are these 4 exhausts. It's like a quad exhaust stacked one atop the other. And you can see that the center parts have been painted in black to simulate depth. And below we have a Pagani license plate. And right next to it, it says Huayra. The taillights are black, so they're a little bit hard to see because they should have been in like a red transparent material. But at least they are separate pieces instead of just being painted on. And the taillight bezel is just made out of like a gloss material, even though it's supposed to be carbon fiber on the real Huayra. You can see that we have a hexagonal shaped pattern on the rear grille, which of course is not see-through or anything, but it's still there. And down here we would have like an additional light, a Formula 1 style brake light. But now as we move further up, let's take a closer look at the engine of this model. Now unfortunately the rear engine bay cover does not open. However, through this window you can still see into the engine, and you can see that Motormax did put some detail there in the form of the AMG engine blocks being visible. And this is supposed to represent a 6-liter twin-turbo AMG V12 producing 720 brake horsepower, providing the Huayra with a top speed of around 360 kilometers per hour and 0 to 100 acceleration in about 3 seconds, depending on the spec and the model year. The highlight of this 124 scale Motormax model of the Pagani Huayra are its gullwing doors. And you can see that they open really nicely and they stay open. And when displayed like this, the model looks absolutely fantastic. So without any more further ado, let's take a closer look at the interior of this model. Now I gotta tell you that when I purchased this model, the interior was completely black. I mean, there was absolutely nothing painted. And I was so disappointed in that because all the details were there that I decided to paint it myself. I mean, you can see that Motormax has provided all the details right there, just waiting to be painted. And so if you have some acrylic paints lying around, you can really turn the interior of this model car into something so much better looking. I essentially gave it a tan dashboard and tan seats as well. And of course, black carbon fiber with a silver center console. In fact, the gauges and everything I have highlighted in silver to make them look like the aluminum that they are on the real Pagani Huayra. I mean, the Huayra really has one of the most distinct and unique looking interiors of all exotic cars out there. The Huayra uses a 7-speed sequential gearbox and a single disc clutch. The choice not to use a dual clutch was due to the increase in weight of over 70 kilograms, which would have negated any advantage of the faster gear changes the dual clutch transmission would have provided. So here's a look at the seats, and you can see that even on this 124 scale model, these seats look exactly like the real seats of the Huayra, including these metal parts here, which are used to change the seat position. But let's take a closer look at the driver's side. So as we move on to check out the driver's side of the Pagani Huayra, again you can see what kind of a difference it makes to just go the extra mile and paint the interior, because all the details are there. In fact, Pagani partnered with jewelers to create these gauges that are hewn from blocks of aluminum and engraved and hand polished to create this almost steampunk looking interior. So yeah, looks really nice. Now if I close the door on the other side, you can see that we also have the sound system and the speakers built into the doors, and that is a detail that's also present on this 124 scale Motormax. So yeah, pretty cool. And now taking a quick look at the bottom of the car, you can see that there's really not a whole lot of stuff going on here. I mean, they tried to keep it in this carbon fiber look, but there's really not any detail here, except here it says, of course, the address of Motormax, and that's about it. One thing I do like, though, is the special tread pattern on the tires. So thanks again for taking the time to check out this review of the 124 scale Pagani Huayra made by Motormax. And I'll see you in the next videos. This is Imperial Diecast. Take care.